Bolt fam, the vibe in Los Angeles feels different today. The offensive line has turned into a puzzle. The run defense is flashing a big red warning sign, and in the middle of the chaos, a quiet addition in the secondary might have changed everything. There are changes coming, and they're not small. On top of that, a 300-plus-pound monster is already showing up in mock drafts as a possible future cornerstone of this franchise. What does all of this mean for our lightning bolt in the AFC right now? You won't believe what we've got today. So sit down, smash that like button, and let's dive straight into it. Bolt fam, let's start where it hurts the most, protecting our quarterback. Week after week, we look at this Chargers offensive line and it feels like nothing fits, like there's always a missing piece, like every Sunday is just another desperate experiment up front. The bye week arrived as a much-needed breather, but also as a mirror, because it made one thing clear. The plan for the trenches has not worked, and the most recent test left no doubt. In that painful loss to the Jaguars, that 35-6 beatdown that shook the fan base, rolling with Trevor Penning at left tackle turned into a nightmare in real time. He came over from New Orleans as a low-risk move, costing just a 2027 sixth-round pick. On paper, the gamble seemed worth it. On the field, it was easy to see why the price was so low. 5 pressures allowed, a sack, trouble anchoring, trouble mirroring rushers, and the constant feeling that the blind side was under siege. It didn't take long for the coaching staff to pull the plug and send Austin Deculus in. But that only leads to the next big question. Now what? There is no savior walking through that door to fix this offensive line in the middle of the season. Jim Harbaugh knows it, and that's why he's hinting that Jamari Salyer could be headed back into the starting lineup. Salyer hasn't been dominant either. He's bounced between right guard and both tackle spots, and everywhere he's lined up, he's left doubts with pressures, sacks, and penalties. Still, when you stare at this roster, he's one of the few linemen with real starting experience. So the decision becomes, what's the lesser evil for this offense? Keep forcing failed experiments or lean on a player who, even with clear limitations, has already shown he can survive stretches of games. That's what this bye week is about. Rethinking combinations, tweaking protections, maybe simplifying the scheme to hide weaknesses. And with the Raiders waiting right after the break in a rivalry game loaded with pressure, every wrong call in the trenches could be the difference between reviving the season and crushing the team's momentum. Bolt fam, and while we're trying to catch our breath from the chaos on the offensive line, the run defense just raised an even louder alarm. Nearly 200 rushing yards allowed to a struggling offense isn't just a bad stat. It exposes blown gap discipline, missed tackles, a thin rotation, and the lack of a veteran presence in the middle. That's exactly where one name starts to gain traction inside the building, Carl Davis Jr. On paper, it looks like a simple fix, but sometimes what you need most is exactly the basics. Davis Jr., even as a journeyman, brings something this front is desperate for: real NFL experience and consistency in a defined role. He's not Aaron Donald, but he knows how to hold the point of attack, anchor versus double teams, and keep a running back from bursting through the line with a free runway. Right now, that alone would already be an upgrade over what we've seen. The fact that he was cut by the Commanders before the season makes some fans skeptical. But when you dive into last year's tape and his grades, you see a solid, functional player, respectable marks against the run, reliable tackling, steady impact as a rotational pass rusher. He's the type of guy who rarely appears in highlight reels, but always shows up when you turn on the film. And when your defense is giving up massive lanes on the ground, that's exactly the kind of player you want in your building. There's another key element here. He wouldn't be asked to be a star. He'd be a complementary piece, someone who can ease the workload on players being forced into roles that don't fully match their strengths. Nobody illustrates that better than Scott Matlock. The staff has tried to use him as this do-it-all weapon on both sides of the ball, but that experiment has started to carry a real cost on defensive snaps. Matlock needs cleaner assignments, while a veteran like Davis Jr. can step into the heavier situations and let everyone else play faster around him. And the fan reaction is already starting to show up. A lot of Chargers fans are begging for exactly this kind of move. A player who brings instant stability, who doesn't need a long adjustment period, who can come in and just execute from day one. Davis Jr. checks those boxes: cheap, available, experienced, with good tape, and a real chance to contribute immediately. It's the kind of signing that doesn't make national headlines, but quietly patches one of the biggest weaknesses on the roster. Bolt fam, in the middle of all this inconsistency, there is at least one spot on defense quietly holding things together with a reliability few expected: Dante Jackson. In a season defined by swings, dominant stretches followed by collapses. He's become the kind of player who changes how the fan base feels watching this defense. While the unit as a whole is still trying to rediscover last year's identity, Jackson is delivering exactly what was needed, and often even more. It's almost funny when you think about what the cornerback market looked like not long ago. While some players at the position cashed in with massive contracts, the Chargers basically walked away with a steal. 2 years, $13 million, and a cap hit that looks almost symbolic compared to other CB1 level deals. Yet week after week, Jackson is out there producing, limiting opposing receivers, making big-time plays, and bringing stability to a secondary that had to be reshaped after losing Asante Samuel Jr. and Christian Fulton in free agency. That game against Jacksonville is the perfect example. While the offense sputtered and the defense was getting punched in the mouth by the run game, Jackson kept the passing defense afloat. A second interception in as many games, only 3 targets his way, almost nothing allowed after the catch. Those numbers are more than just pretty stats. They speak to composure and technique. That's the level of play that keeps a position group functional even when everything else around it feels shaky. And there's a bigger strategic angle. How Jackson's contract opens doors for what comes next. With him playing at such a high level while taking up a small slice of the salary cap, the Chargers have flexibility to attack other critical needs next offseason, especially along the lines which will be priority number 1. In a league where every dollar matters, having what looks like a top 15 corner playing on something closer to a mid-tier deal is gold. The fan base is starting to see that too. Early on, a lot of people viewed the signing as a modest bet, just another piece in a reshuffled secondary. Now many see Jackson as one of the pillars of this defensive rebuild. He's not just a good player on a hot streak, he's becoming an anchor for the entire system, the kind of presence that lets the coaching staff experiment, adjust, and evolve, even in the middle of a chaotic season. Teams with real playoff aspirations need exactly these types of players. Consistent, dependable, and ready when the game is on the line. Dante Jackson has been all of that, and he's proof that there are foundational pieces in place for a genuine turnaround in Los Angeles. Bolt fam, and while we're still processing all of this, the shaky offensive line, the run defense in emergency mode, the secondary discovering a new cornerstone, there's another storyline quietly building in the background. The long-term future of the defensive front. Even with this season still wide open, draft analysts are already circling one specific name over and over again when it comes to reinforcing the interior of the Chargers' defense: Amari Washington, the giant from Oregon. Yes, the draft is still a ways off, but when 2 ESPN analysts, Jordan Reed and Matt Miller, send the same prospect to Los Angeles in their early mocks, you have to pay attention. Washington isn't just big, he's massive. We're talking 6'3", around 330 pounds with rare explosiveness for that size, surprising short area agility, and the kind of raw power that can change what the middle of a defensive line looks like. He's the type of player who forces opposing coordinators to rip up their game plans and start over. There's another layer here that Chargers fans who follow college ball already noticed. Washington played alongside current Chargers rookie Jamari Caldwell at Oregon. They rotated in the same system, shared reps, and learned the same terminology. That means built-in chemistry, faster communication, and a smoother transition if they're reunited in Los Angeles. Starting a season with a young, explosive, already familiar rotation inside would shorten a process that usually takes months to develop. What really makes this idea fit is how perfectly Washington matches the Harbaugh blueprint. Harbaugh has always built his teams from the inside out, dominating the trenches, imposing physical will, and breaking opponents mentally over 4 quarters. A defensive tackle like Washington becomes a tactical weapon, closing interior gaps, collapsing the pocket, forcing long third downs, and creating better looks for edge rushers. Even if he's not filling up the box score, he changes the geometry of the field and dictates how offenses call plays. Fans are already debating it across social media. Some are pounding the table for a wide receiver, others want immediate help for the offensive line, and all of that makes sense. But when you step back and look at the structural needs of this defense, especially after that meltdown against the run, it's easy to see why Washington keeps popping up as a logical target. He's the kind of prospect who can reshape an identity, not just plug a hole. And if these early mock draft projections are close to reality, the Chargers might be staring at one of those picks we look back on years from now and say, that's when everything really started to change. Bolt fam, after everything we've just broken down, it's clear the Chargers are standing at a crossroads. The offensive line is still a giant question mark. The run defense needs urgent answers, but the right move at defensive tackle, combined with the elite level Dante Jackson is playing at, shows this defense can absolutely be the engine of a turnaround. And if Amari Washington really becomes a serious target in the draft, the long-term future of the trenches could jump to a different level. Now it's your turn. Do you believe in a full-scale rebuild around this identity? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's ride this out together as one family.